Hello everyone and welcome to today's show with sportsbookreview.com. I'm your host Lee Martin, joined today with the man himself, JJ. We're going to discuss the NASCAR Cup Series race that's going to take place this Wednesday, June 10th at Martinsville Speedway. But before we get into any NASCAR talk, like always, go ahead, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show. Now let's get to it. How are you doing today, JJ?
Fantastic. Yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. Now let's just get right into it. So I just want to start off real quick. Could you give us a recap of the last race at Atlanta Motor Speedway?
I think obviously the headline is Kevin Harvick had his 8 for 8 top 10 streak broken for the season at Bristol with an 11th place finish. He rebounds with the win at Atlanta. Great race. And really, you saw him be the fastest guy on the track when it mattered. In that last stage, he pulled away, wasn't going to be caught. No cautions. It was a nice, clean race. I mean, we had one unplanned caution early, very minor. But when it came down to who's going to be the best at the end, it wasn't bothered by this caution and caution nonsense. It was just pure, clean running. And you saw who was the fastest guy on the track. Now, you had Kyle Busch, Truex, Blaney, and Hamlin right behind him. Like we said last week, Atlanta is a place where it rewards speed. And that's what you saw with all those green flag laps. I think they had just 16 or 17 cars in the lead lap when all was done. There was a lot of fast guys putting guys a lap down. Truex was third. This was his best finish of the season so far. Of course, that was what I felt to be the best bet. If you could get him at 12-1, he had a great run. Best of the season, and I think this bodes well for him moving forward, working out some kinks. He's a 1.5 mile guy, so you kind of expected him to be good, but he stumbled out of the gates, and this was a good rebound for him. Now, Clint Bowyer was a guy who was kind of muddying the waters there. He had his time in the sun, but he flew a little close to it. You saw he had 3 times where he pushed the limits with those tires, and he's a guy that even said he hates repaves. He loves the rough tracks. He likes racing in Atlanta, and he pushed the limits. He wasn't one of the fastest cars, but he drove his tail end off. It cost him, though, because that third tire issue, he had to come in, green flag, and lost those spots. But you saw that with the tire wear. It's not going to be a problem here, but you saw Byron go out early, then Jones, DiBenedetto, and Clint. All those last 3 guys spent time in the top 10, but they finished outside of the top 20 because the tires got them. And I don't know, did you see the good news that the schedule's been extended? Cup Series, all of NASCAR extended into August. We've got a couple Pocono races at the end of the month. Interesting, they're splitting it up, so they're going to have, I think, 350 miles Saturday, 325 on Sunday. So it should be pretty interesting. Then they're should be rolling into Indy, Kentucky, and then right into All-Star Weekend in Charlotte in July, and then Texas, Kansas, and New Hampshire into August. So that's really great news for for race fans, handicappers, bettors, all of us.
Yep, for sure. Now let's move on to the race for this Wednesday. So, and who do you think, and what drivers have had the most success at Martinsville Speedway in the past?
Well, Martinsville is unlike any other, whereas you had a track in Atlanta that's kind of like Texas, it's kind of like Charlotte, these 1.5 mile quad ovals. Well, this is a short track. This is the shortest track on the Cup Series circuit. It's the paperclip. It's a 1/2 mile like Bristol, where we were at a couple weeks ago, but it's got half the banking and it's only got concrete on the inner grooves in the turn. So it's a totally different racetrack, even though it's short track racing. What's interesting is because of this modified schedule coming out of the break with the COVID situation, this is going to be the first Cup Series race under the lights in the 73-year history in Martinsville. So it should be pretty interesting. The drivers are used to doing a spring race, an early race, and then the fall race in the playoffs. This is kind of, late spring into summer, and it's at night. So it's going to be a little bit different animal for all of these drivers. And so you've got 500 laps here on the short track. It's going to separate the proficient short track guys from the deficient short track guys, without a doubt. And I think what you've seen over the years, especially recent years, is the champions are running the show here. The big guns, the big 6, the established 6, Kyle, Harvick, Truex, Brad, Joey, and Denny. They're all Cup champions except for Denny Hamlin, and they all have Cup Series wins here. Now, Harvick, you got to go far back to 2011, but these guys have been very strong and are winners at this track. You saw with the opening odds, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, they squeezed into the middle of this group of 6, but those are 6 of the top 8 guys in the odds, and for just reason. Since 2017, 5 of the 6 winners came from that group except for Clint Boyer. 2018, he got the win. Truex won the playoff race last year, which was in the fall, but which was the STP 500 spring race, your guy Brad Keselowski took it down in the spring last year. And these 6 guys, they've been hogging the top 5, the top 6 slots. In the last 4 years, these guys combined have 21 top 10s and 14 top 5s. So the fall race position in the playoffs, they come to Martinsville because this is true short track racing. And this is a necessary component for a Cup champion. This is a big track, big race. And so you're going to see these guys really put a lot of effort into it in this unique situation midweek under the lights.
Yep. Now let's talk about Kevin Harvick. He won last week in Atlanta, and his odds right now via 5 dimes are plus 1320. How do you think he'll perform at Martinsville on Wednesday?
I mean, that's a pretty fat number when you think about a guy who's been, very good on this track, can compete anywhere, just comes off the win. But like we said before, this is a crowded space. You've got all the heavy hitters are right there at the top. So somebody's got to come down below 10-1. I mean, in Martinsville, he's got 5 top 10s in a row, which is okay. But he's had his tricky patches here. There's no doubt about it. His last win was way back in 2011. And that's the longest time of those big 6, the big guns, since they've won. I think Hamlin won in 2015. Otherwise, everybody else has won more recently. But he's got 9 top 10s and 10 races this year across a wide array of tracks. Before the break, after the break, he's got 6 top 5s and 2 wins now. So he's always a threat. He was 11th at Bristol. So, when we're talking about short tracks, he wasn't very dominant there. And he's had some recent stumbles there too. So at this price, he's still a viable guy because he's always within striking position, but it is a crowded field. It's a big price, but I think it's fair given everybody who's above him.
So for our previous show, when we broke down the Atlanta race, we spoke a lot about Brad Keselowski. Okay. Yep. Now for this race, he's priced at plus 550 via 5 dimes. How do you think Brad will perform on Wednesday at Martinsville? Do you think he'll do better than 9th?
I think he'll do better than 9th. Now, when we talked about him last week, we talked about, he had been, getting some good breaks. And then, my selected matchup was against Alex Bowman, who had been suffering some rough breaks. And Brad lost his halo on Sunday. He had a pit road speeding violation. That's user error. That's not somebody taking you out or a tire going down unexpectedly. That was him doing that. He put himself behind the 8 ball early and was a lap back very early in the race. Mm-hmm. Now, he rebounded strongly to finish 10th. He got the matchup against Bowman, which made me very happy, but he had to work pretty hard for it. Now, he had a fast car. He's well established. He did not panic, got back on the lead lap and worked his way back up there. He's got a 5-race top 10 streak this season. That rally at Atlanta saved that streak. And probably more importantly is the fact that he's in an 8-race groove at Martinsville. He was 10th in the spring race in 2018. Yeah, that's not bad. But when you consider that he is 7 of his last 8 at Martinsville, he's in the top 5. So he's right there. He deserves to be next to the favorite here, especially with 2 wins and 1 runner-up. He's won 2 of the last 3 spring races. So if you want to call this the spring running at Martinsville, he's definitely on fire like he was going in Atlanta, right? 2 out of 3 there. It's a short price on him, but it's really supported by his performance recently. Yep.
Now taking a look at all the odds that are posted, and what drivers do you find the most value?
So this is a pretty interesting one. As we've been talking, it's tight turnaround, right? We just had the Cup race yesterday evening. Yep. They're running this one on Wednesday. And so we just had some odds pop first thing this morning, but 5 dimes came on later in the afternoon. So a little bit of time to digest this. I'm looking at a guy, and we talked about him last week, Ryan Blaney. He's 13-20 to win. And again, it's a crowded top of the field. It's a tough track to race on. But, I actually was working up our handicapping article for this race. And before the odds dropped, was featuring him as really an emerging short track star. And, he came through with a very nice fourth place win, very clean race. He did very well, aggressive and fast, but safe. So he got that fourth. He ran great at Charlotte, and he was really positioned for a big day at Bristol. Had that spin out, got a little greedy in up high, and then got taken out by Ty Dillon. So that was a very unfortunate result for something that a guy that we backed in that race, Ryan Newman, he spun out twice. It didn't hit a wall, didn't get wrecked, and came through for us. Unfortunately for Ryan, he got his front end smashed off at Bristol, but I think he was fast. He was looking very good. He just paid the price for a mistake. Now, I'd also noted last week that he's my personal trap driver. Whenever I seem to support him, bad things happen to him. But I have to recognize just how good he is on short tracks. Mm-hmm. And he's been very dangerous since joining the Penske 12 team in 2018. At Bristol, again, different short track, but it's a half mile. He had an accident in his spring debut and then 3 straight top 10s there. He was not rewarded this year. He paid the price. But at Martinsville, again, different animal, but in the same genre of type of track. He's finished all 8 Cup Series races here. So I think the do not finish is waiting for my money to be on him here at this track. But you have to respect the fact that the top 5, he's been top 5 in 3 of the last 4 here at Martinsville. So I figured he would be a little higher on the odds board. My note for him was that he's not going to be surprising the odds makers. Again, I think it just comes down to it being a crowded market here at Martinsville. Before he joined Penske, the fall race, the playoff race in 2017, he was 8th in the Wood Brothers number 21. A classic team, one of those established teams, but one that doesn't quite have the resources of Penske. And I think Penske knew, this is the guy that we want to bring back to add to his stable of cars, rejuvenate the 12 team, and I think he's really paid off for him. He got pushed around early in the 2018 fall race here. He finished 20th. But, a guy like Clint Boyer gave him a little something in the tail there early, and he never really responded back from that. But you've seen him race very well here in the last 3. He's good from any starting position. He's shown that he'll get there in the qualifying rounds, but we're not qualifying. But it doesn't matter. In 2019, in this spring race, he started 17th and worked his way all the way back to 4th. So I think he's a big threat. Nice price on him. I see a lot of value in him. If you want to go for a longer shot, take a look at Clint Boyer, 27-1 right now. He could get higher. And if you want a thrill ride for your money, Clint's your guy. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, he loved Atlanta's rough track. He doesn't like the smooth tracks. He likes the challenge. But then again, he played with fire and had 3 near blowouts, and it really took him out of contention there at the end. But he won this race back in the spring of 2018. So we know he can run it. He's been a threat at Bristol at times. So he's your classic guy that you never want to count out, but you also have to take into account that he may get into the wall, something weird's going to happen to him, or he's going to ride a little rough on those tires. But he's had a pair of 7th place finishes in the 2017 and 2019 spring races. So right sandwiched around that 2018 win. So I think he's in there, and if you can get him at 30-1, you never know. He's the kind of veteran that can steal this race, and he's got the potential for, getting up there above 30-1 if you really want to take a gamble.
Yep. So if you do want to get in on Ryan Blaney or Clint Boyer, Ryan Blaney is plus 1320, Clint Boyer is plus 2700. So there's that. Now you just talked about most valuable drivers. Are there any drivers that you would fade at Martinsville?
So going into this, before the odds were posted, I kind of made a little bit of a short list of guys that I'm looking to go against, especially in matchups with those who I normally see them tied up against. Unfortunately, like a William Byron, he got put into matchups, at least early matchups, against some of my other fades. So no true advantage for me there. But 2 guys still kind of stand out there. One is Eric Jones at 44-1. Now, he was a guy that we backed against William Byron last week. lucked out with Byron's early tire troubles because Eric Jones had some late tire troubles of his own. But that 28th place in Atlanta was really no representation of his top 10 run. So, unfortunately, he's in a position where, he didn't do very well, and that reflects probably on the price here. The rough surface bit him. But at Martinsville, he placed 12th in his debut back in 2017. And I think that was when he said, okay, this guy, he's going to do something. He's on the Gibbs team, so he's got the machines. But since then, not really too well. He's failed to crack 17th in the last 5 races at Martinsville. So kind of looked at him as a guy who I think you could get some good matchup potential there. He's a good driver. He's got potential. He could continue to be one of those stars that's hanging around the series for 10, 15 years, but not here, not now. And I don't see any good matchups against him, but we'll see as the week goes on and hopefully the menu expands tomorrow evening or Wednesday morning, and I can see somebody that I like against him. Another guy is somebody that we faded last week, and that's Alex Bowman. I think he's somewhere around 33-1. So he's back there in the pack. You saw him coming out of the break, and even just a couple races ago where he was being giving favored up there with the main guys, the favorites. Not today, not in Martinsville. I think his 12th place at Atlanta last week, it was kind of a tick up from the form that he's been in coming out of the break after Darlington. The books have been steadily making adjustments to his odds. And again, I didn't really see any matchups right now that I liked. I think you saw that matchup with Brad that we featured on this show was a very good example. At the Open, he was basically a pick'em. Brad and him were pick'em at minus 115. We jumped on that. We saw that go to 130 pretty quickly. And then on race day, minus 175 on Brad, minus 200, even at a book like Bovada. Just insane price. And he almost didn't cover it, because of that, the speeding penalty. And Bowman had a decent day, but that's about what we expected, somewhere in the early to mid-teens type of finish, type of effort. And that's what he gave you. But it took everything that Brad had to get back on that lead lap and race back the ninth. Now, the 9th to 12th place differential was a little bit of a fooler because I think he had about a 12-second lead on him when that race finished. So he had a comfortable lead over Bowman. But here we are. He's 33-1, somewhere in that neighborhood. His last 3 races here have been kind of, meh. So like Jones, he had a great debut, but since then just really hasn't done much to improve on this track. So again, if I can find a good head-to-head matchup against him, I'll certainly fade him again.
All right. Well, if you're feeling risky and you want to go after the people JJ's fading, Eric Jones is at plus 4,400 and Alex Bowman at plus 3,300. Now, JJ, you brought up driver matchups, so let's get into some driver matchups. The first one I want to talk about, Kyle Busch versus Martin Truex Jr. Via 5 dimes, Kyle Busch is minus 115 and Martin Truex Jr. is plus 125. Can you give me your take on that matchup?
Well, these are hot off the press, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think we were talking before we shot this, and these just came out, which was great because, I was prepared to look at some hypotheticals, some potential matchups. Now, Kyle and Truex, again, the big dogs, those top 6 racers, we knew they were going to be featured against one another. It was just a matter of, what's going to be the pecking order and how heavy is the juice going to be in this situation. Truex is a plus 125 dog. Kyle's laying 155 right now. And when you look at Kyle, he's had 6 top 5s in the last 8 races this year. He's been very strong. He's been a contender. Like we said last week, when he's in there, you have to be worried about him. He's had a couple duds, 3 duds this year. One was Daytona, which I'd never hold against anybody because of the wild nature of that, or Talladega next in a couple weekends. But you really look at Kyle at this track, and 2015 was the catalytic year for him at Martinsville. He had the crew chief change going into the season to Adam Stevens, who is still his crew chief. He got injured at the Daytona 500 and missed about 3 months to go in the beginning part of 2015. So he missed the spring race at Martinsville. He caught fire in the summer. He won at Sonoma and then won 3 of the next 4 races in that summer. And that was on the way to his Cup championship. So that was his first championship of the entire season. He was 5th in the Martinsville playoff race. So he was really hot, and that really kicked off something. He snapped the funk and kicked off a 4-year rampage at Martinsville. 8-race top 5 streak was broken last fall by a pretty good finish of its own. But again, he was very dominant here for over close to 5 years. And in that stretch, 2 wins, 2 runners up. I will not be surprised if he's right there again coming into this one. So you have to give him proper respect. The odds makers are obviously as 4-1 plus 450 favorite in this one. But then you've got Truex. Again, like I said, he had a great race. He gave you, if you went with that 12-1, he gave you a very good run from his money because he was right there in second. Kyle caught him there in the last dozen or so laps, but it was Harvick's race there at the end, no doubt about it. He had his best outing of the season. I would not be surprised if he's able to continue for that momentum. Back on the short track, he's had major struggles at Bristol, but he's a totally different guy at Martinsville. So again, sometimes you've got these drivers who are very good on short tracks, whether it's Bristol or Martinsville. Truex is not that guy. He struggles at Bristol, but he's been very good at Martinsville. He's the fall 2019 race champion here, and he's had 4 top 5s in the last 5 at Martinsville, 8 in the last spring race. I think Kyle deserves to be the favorite. He's outraced Truex consistently this season. But I think if you're going to play this, you take the sizable dog. I mean, I would think a fair price for an opener, in my opinion, would be Kyle minus 130, Truex plus 100. So if you felt that way, you're going to grab that plus 125.
Yep. So if you do want to get in on this driver matchup, again, Kyle Busch is minus 155 and Martin Truex Jr. is plus 125. Now let's head on over to our next matchup. I have Denny Hamlin minus 145 versus Joey Logano plus 115 via 5 dimes. What's your take on that matchup?
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting one. Since returning from the break, Hamlin has really done much better than Logano, even though Logano has not been a slouch. Hamlin has outraced him in 5 of the 6 races after the break. The race where I actually bet Hamlin to win, the Coca-Cola 600, dropped the ballast out of his car on lap 0 and forget about it. You might as well lit that ticket on fire. But other than that, Hamlin has been very good this season. But the thing you have to consider is there's been a lot of give and take between these two at Martinsville for about a decade now. Logano beat him in both of the 2018 races. But it took a win to edge out Denny in one of those where he came in second. And that was Joey's title year back in 2018. So he was having a really good run. But Hamlin's gotten him in the last 2. So 2019 belonged to Hamlin. But like I said, it's been back and forth between these two guys at Martinsville for over a decade now. Now, I think where the edge is Denny's current form. He's got a considerable edge over Logano in his current form. I think at maybe a minus 130, I would take Hamlin. Or if Logano was going to get somewhere like Truex was at plus 125, plus 130, I might even take him. So it's one of those deals where I think it's very price dependent. Denny has the edge, but you don't want to pay too much because Logano is very good here.
Yep. So again, if you do want to get in on that driver matchup, Denny Hamlin is minus 145 and Joey Logano is plus 115. So keep an eye out for those odds. Now, JJ, to end the driver matchups, do you have a favorite matchup that was posted?
Yeah, there was a lot that I looked through, and like I said, on first blush, I was very disappointed in not being able to see the guys on my fade list against any of the guys on my go-to list. All the fades were against the fades. Now, here's a situation where you've got one of my favorite guys for his consistency, and that's Kurt Busch. He's going up against Jimmie Johnson as a plus 115 dog. Now, Kurt, he's had his 4th top 10 result in a row, 7th of those last 8 this season. He's been very consistent, finds his way up there. Now, we played this matchup last week and had a serious sweat when we found out that he failed 3 pre-race inspections, had to go to the back, but not just go to the back. Kurt had to go do a stop and go or a pass-through penalty in the pits as the guys were under green. That put him a lap down from the get-go, but he stayed calm. Eventually got back on the lead lap at the stage caution, and just did a fantastic job of running green flag laps at the end of the race. Again, the green flag laps really accentuated who had a fast car. Jimmie was good, but Kurt caught him with 3 laps to go. It was a major sweat, very good race for Kurt to show the resolve of this veteran. Martinsville has not always been his friend, though. He's a two-time winner here, 2002, seems like forever, in 2014, which to a degree was a long time ago as well. His 2014 win came in the middle of 23 races outside the top 10. 14 of those were actually outside the top 20. So Kurt hasn't always been very good here. He went through a very rough patch, but he's been solid in his last 4 races at Martinsville. I put him about around a 10th place finish, and given the fact that his current form is he's been finding his way into there, not like 10th is this magical number, but it kind of is. You see it separating him in a lot of these races where he's able to get into 6th, 7th, 8th finishes like that. Now for Jimmie, he's like the opposite. His last top 10 finish at Martinsville was the 2016 playoff race. He had a 2019 disaster season, arguably. He's on his farewell tour now, but that crew chief turnover last year, before the season, in the middle of the season, undoubtedly wreaked some havoc in it. So I'm going to discount the fact that Jimmie Johnson had a 24th and a 38th at Martinsville last year. I think everybody was really ready for the 48 team to just get ready for 2020 and try to take another run at things. But he's a 9 times champ here, and you're going to hear a lot about that on the telecast, and justifiably so. This is his farewell tour. We're living through all his previous hits, and Martinsville was a Jimmie Johnson track. But those glory days are in the past. I'm not calling for a disastrous finish. He's got a super competitive car this year. There's no doubt about it. It's just a little edgy, so he's a little bit of a liability, I'd say. And Kurt's outraced Jimmie in 4 of the last races since the break this season. They split them 2-2 going into the break, but Kurt's been consistently better. In those races where Jimmie won, he's been very good. So you always have to respect that. This is no lock at all. Now, the other thing is Kurt's outraced Jimmie in the last 4 here at Martinsville, though the 2018s were a lot tighter than the 2019 races. But I expect another tight one. There's no doubt about it. But the fact that Kurt is getting plus 115, I think, is gravy in what should be an even matchup. Give me Kurt's consistency over Jimmie's ups and downs. Both these guys should be in the top 10, but give me Kurt.
All right. Well, if you do want to go with one of JJ's favorite driver matchups, again, Kurt Busch is plus 115 and Jimmie Johnson is minus 145 via 5 dimes. Now to top everything off, JJ, do you have a top or favorite pick for the race on Wednesday?
Again, since we're going to talk about to win the race, that's what it's all about. That's what the people want. I'm going to go with Blaney. I mean, at 13-20, again, he's my personal nemesis, only for the fact that it seems like when I got my money on him, something happens. But that superstition shouldn't keep you away from the fact that he's a threat here. He's fast. I think you see him racing a little smarter than he has in the past, but he still has that aggressive edge, and you need that on a track like Martinsville. It's 500 laps. There's no doubt about it. It's a lot of repetition, but you have to be aggressive in and out of those turns. And I think he's the guy who's got the speed, the aggression, and I think he's starting to wisen up a little bit. And for that price, I would definitely take him.
All right. Well, if you guys want to get in on that pick, again, Ryan Blaney is plus 1320 via 5 dimes. Well, that's all I have for you today, JJ. Thank you so much for your time and dropping some knowledge for us. If you aren't following JJ on Twitter, definitely give him a follow at The Bet Crushers. And if you aren't following us on Twitter or Instagram, definitely give us a follow at SBR Sports Picks. And like always, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you're updated with all new and upcoming content. So again, thank you, JJ, for your time. Until next time.